Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Town Council meeting for May 21st, 2019. Please rise. Councilor Boncory, now that you're here on time.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. We'd like a moment of silence. Parks and Rec Director Sean Driscoll lost his sister, Debbie Driscoll Newman, also the daughter of Rita Driscoll, a longtime employee of the Winthrop Town Hall. Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Ingman. Here. Council Calla. Present. Council Christopher.
Yeah.
Council Boncory.
Here.
Council Sordo. Council Farino.
Here.
Council Conti. Vice President Lettieri.
Here.
President Vecchio.
Here.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the May 7th, 2019 Town Council meeting minutes.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Public comment.
An abstention.
Michael.
Yes, Michael.
Mr. President, Michael Demento, Precinct 2. On Saturday, May 11th, this whole board, Mr. Faison, DPW Director Calla, Speaker DeLeo, and Senator Boncory were advised of sewerage overflow coming up through a backed-up pipe on Palmyra Street, flowing into a stormwater runoff drain contaminating the harbor. No one on this board, other than two councilors who are not named, responded that they felt this is an urgent need to be addressed. Mr. Faison sat in the background until I prodded him to get a response. What is this council going to do to solve over 30 years of sewerage backup on Palmyra Street, which I brought up back in January, and again, it overflowed into that stormwater drain, contaminating the harbor. What is the long-term fix of this? It's been going on over 30 years. Something needs to be done on it. And shame on all the councilors who didn't respond to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Yes.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Julia Wallers, Precinct 2. I wanted to address you personally because on your agenda tonight there is an item to consider, a motion that Councilor Christopher put forward for the Transportation Advisory Committee to be tasked with initiating what we're calling the Winthrop Better Bus Initiative. And I just wanted to give you a little background on what we're thinking, why we want to do that, since I can't stay for the full meeting. And I have a little summary here, which I'll pass out to you in just a minute. I won't get into the details, but just to zoom out a little bit, buses are increasingly being viewed through the region as a prime solution to solving our congestion crisis. Over 450,000 people per day ride buses. That's more than on the commuter rail at any given day. And we think, and 3,000 of those people are here in Winthrop. So on the 712 and 713 buses, we think there is so much more that we could do to make that service attractive, reliable, and give people a sense of dignity. And so we wanted to essentially package that in the Better Bus Initiative. So full disclosure, it is definitely piggybacking on what the MBTA already has, their Better Bus Initiative, which identified 47 routes for strategic improvements. Winthrop was not any of those top routes, but that does not mean that we can't pursue some of the recommendations put forward. And to grab some of what I keep saying is low-hanging fruit, which we're already moving forward on, like making sure that all the stops are properly marked, making sure that we actually delineate the markings of where a bus actually stops so people aren't being dropped off in the middle of the street and risking run into traffic, enforcing the parking restrictions there, doing some ADA upgrades. There's actually some funding available to get shelters and buses that we don't have to dig into our own pockets for. The MBTA is really starting to step up on this and to recognize that bus riders are their customers too, and there's a lot more they should be doing, not just putting it all on the municipalities. So we would like to be tasked with taking that seriously, making that a big focus of what we're doing, and also taking advantage of the pilot programs this summer that the MBTA is doing. So, and doing things like just promoting the transit app, just letting people know that you can use your smartphone, you can take the bus is a great option. So I will pass out this little summary. I think you'll probably learn more about it later in your meeting, but just wanted to have this on hand. And if you have any questions, let me know. We're excited about it and think we could make this a fun thing that is a real positive for our town and get more people on the bus. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Yes, sir.
Vasily Malios, 90 Pleasant Street, Precinct 5. Good evening, members of the Town Council and Town Manager. Back in 2003, I was entering Winthrop High School as a 14-year-old freshman. The normal 9th grade student is typically nervous for that first day of school. They are unsure of what a syllabus is, who the teachers are, how a waterfall schedule works, and which upperclassmen should be avoided while walking down the hallways. However, instead of having those kind of typical 9th grade thoughts, myself and the other 140 plus students entering UHS in 2003 were more concerned about the financial situation of the town supporting the Winthrop Public Schools budget. We were unsure when walking up the steps the first day of school whether the school department could fund any and all extracurricular activities. An uncontrollable number of students began applying outside of Winthrop in fear that there would be no athletics, no arts, and no clubs. This is not what a 14-year-old should be concerned with going into their freshman year of high school. Let's fast forward. 16 years later, I'm currently working at Winthrop Middle School and teaching in the 8th grade. At this time, the normal 8th grade teacher should be concerned about wrapping up their school year, planning end-of-the-year activities for their students, and moving our students on past 8th grade. However, instead of having those normal 8th grade teacher thoughts, I once again am experiencing the financial worry of the town supporting the Winthrop Public Schools. Why is it that year after year, the norm for our teachers, our ESPs, our administrators, and other members of our Winthrop Public School family must be unsure of what to expect when the town presents its final budget? The idea of not meeting a level service budget would affect not only the staff in the Winthrop Public Schools, but more importantly, our students. Lack of funding would result in cuts at all levels. The population of special ed, ELL, or English language learners are increasing yearly, and without a funded budget, we will not be able to provide the best learning environment for that demographic and not meet the needs of our students. At the middle school, we are currently experiencing math, science, and ELA teachers having to teach civics or geography. The teachers who are having to teach these social studies classes are not licensed in that content area and have no background knowledge in social studies. This has been going on, an ongoing issue with the Winthrop Public Schools because of lack of funding. Once again, we will not meet the needs of our students. We are constantly seeing teachers leaving yearly and moving on to other districts because of the lack of pay and supports that pale in comparison to other local districts. In the next few years, the term of a veteran teacher in the Winthrop Public Schools could possibly be endangered because we are seeing teachers leave in the first few years due to the instability of the budget. The absence of teacher retention and experienced teachers is a disservice to our students. How do we fix this? What options does the town have to generate revenue? The Center Business District, the old middle school site, an override? When the town manager presented his budget a few months back, I noticed that the town is very reliant on outside funding and generates very little revenue on its own. The first thing that came to mind when seeing this is what will happen if we were to go into another recession, and how would it affect the schools, the staff, and most importantly, our students. The teachers at the middle school know the extent of my involvement with the community and organizations within the town, and will ask me questions regarding the financial status of the town. The following comments have been made from my peers. How much money do you think the town will give us this year? Are the schools going to be funded appropriately? I don't know if I can continue to teach here with the little supports that we have. My answer to them these last few years: continue to have hope. However, those instances of having hope are starting to fade throughout the district as history continues to repeat itself. I personally would like to say that I want to continue to have hope, but there's been very little change in these last 16 years. How can the town expect dedicated teachers like myself to continue teaching here under these financial instabilities? I ask of you, members of the town council and town manager, to full-heartedly support the recommendation of the Winthrop Public Schools budget made by Superintendent Lisa Howard.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Anyone else wish to be heard? Hearing none, that ends public comment. Okay, correspondence is later. Department budget discussions, we're going to start with the town clerk. You gave it to us. Whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Hi there.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having me, and David, I think, is going to do the slides for me.
Which one is it?
Um,
Clerk, one
Services
down, one
managed.
down.
No, it was right, services managed. First one? Yep, thank you. Perfect. Hi there. My name is Carla Vitale, and I'm your town clerk. And in August, I will have been here 15 years. My page on the budget begins on page 53, and it's actually in front of you folks if you wanted to give it a quick perusal. Our budget has a $785 increase, or a 0.2 increase over FY19. This first slide, and in your packets, shows the major services handled in the clerk's office. Our office is historically the first stop for most folks visiting the hall, and our counter is often busy with residents needing information about state agencies, other departments, businesses, landlord-tenant issues, and sometimes emergency services like food, shelter, and elder issues. Although it's not our core mission, we realize and respect the needs of our customers, and we take pride in being able to send them to the right place, print something off the internet, or call ahead, usually up to Austin's office, to let them know somebody's on their way to make a visit. This wouldn't be possible without a great team, and although our team has changed a bit over the years, my assistant town clerk, Joanne D'Amato, has been with the town over 11 years. And after a long transition in the beginning of this fiscal year, in November, we added Marilyn Popolo to our staff, and former elections director in Everett, Maureen DePiero, is now with us part-time. The four of us work really well together, and having the backup of Denise Quist, who we also work with very closely, has been a real benefit to us during elections and in the months when we were shorthanded. The second slide highlights our election management. It highlights our election management and activities throughout the year. As you know, elections may only be a few times a year, that's what people say, but nomination papers for state and local candidates and questions, census work and training are a huge part of our operation year-round. Running elections is a huge undertaking with no room for error. We're proud of our success, and it couldn't be possible without the support of so many people. We count on the support of the police, the school, and the DPW to get the job done, and also our 70 election workers here in town. The big highlight of this slide was the rollout in the last year of our iPads to check in during early voting. Last early voting period, we had 791 people voted early in the 10 days before the November 2018 midterms. And we were open nights and weekends, and that was a huge accomplishment for us. We also work hard on the continued relationship with high school students to involve them in town government. We've tried hard to make strides and strengthen the relationship with students by going to speak with them in class and holding voter registrations during lunch periods. We did 2 of those this year. Our third and final slide talks a little bit about preserving Winthrop's preservation and preserving our future. A little bit of history about our preservation efforts. It started with an environmental monitoring report in our vaults, and more recently was giving funding to improve and save our records. We continue to hope for a small allocation each year to chip away at the expensive but crucial and critical need. I'm always looking for ways to leverage opportunities and identify free money to support our efforts with preservation. To that end, we've partnered, along with Diane Wallace's guidance, with the Boston Public Library's Digital Archive Initiative, and we've been able to preserve death records from 1853 to 1967 free of charge. And I continue to try and advocate for Winthrop to again be chosen for this amazing opportunity, and I'll keep you posted. The one thing I want to leave you folks with, although everybody is trying to plug for their department, is that right now, the next phase of our preservation project is to have birth books preserved from 1946 to 1962. And that next phase will cost $153,000. If you could just grab that last slide, I think it says preservation books. It just shows That's it. The total project is over $445,000, which I realize you folks aren't able to give us those allocations this year, but we're hoping to continue to chip away at what the progress that we've made. So far, we've had allocations from the council in 17 and 18, and we've utilized just over $46,000 to date to do the work that we've already done. So we hope that you'll look favorably upon us in the capital list and give us allocations in the future. And that's my presentation, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
So Carla, those, the birth certificates, they're put in like a plastic laminate?
Yeah, so on the first side, before preservation, you can see, although our books, believe it or not, given what the environmental report said, which was that our conditions were very poor, to me, they still look very, very good. That's what you see there, but you can see the bindings, and the paper is disintegrating. The important thing to note is when we use the older books before they're preserved, each time we have to make a birth certificate, we have to bend or push the binding down to get it over the Xerox machine. And the light from the Xerox machine ruins the paper, not to mention time and pH and acidic values and a whole bunch of different things. So what we're doing is after preservation, each piece of paper is broken from the binding. It's treated with a museum quality chemical to preserve it for the future. It's put in the plastic casings that are also treated, and it's rebound singly. On top of that, there's a digital image made. So what happens is those books now stay forever preserved, never to be touched again. They're museum quality, and we use digital images to make our birth certificates. And it just, especially with Winthrop being a birthing hospital for so many years, and Fort Banks, we had a lot of military babies. So many people rely on us for our records, and we really do need to just each year take a small step to chip away at those preservation efforts.
Okay. Any questions from the councilors?
Council, are we doing anything now to work for the future on the new stuff? So we don't have,
We are. So the registry is helping us to do that. They're doing the current work, so that's not happening in current day. It's all the prior books that we have. So from here forward, we're good. We don't have museum quality, but we have those digital images, and we're taking better care of them.
thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, it's not about your budget. Your budget is great, and I hope we give you all you need. But I have a question: we passed a motion to have an election on the marijuana ban, and a question was written and it was sent to Copeland and Page, and I haven't seen what we got back from them. But I need to know what the deadline is for us to submit it so that we get it on the ballot in November.
So, thank you for asking. I haven't seen the response either, but I would say as soon as possible. The deadline is typically, I think it's 35 days prior to when you would have the election. You must call for it. But for
But we
our,
also have to get it certified, the question by the Attorney General's office before we can even go on. Before
And-
that, you know.
off the cuff, as I understand it, the language is very finite. I don't know if it's, I mean, I'm sure Austin knows more than I do about this, but I think the language is finite, and we would need to know from a staffing perspective, the sooner the better, but I believe it's 35 days before the election. I can get more information back to you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Council.
Carla, would you have money in your budget to cover that election, or is that something that would?
Well, we could,
Is that part of it?
we would roll it into the November election already.
Oh, okay.
The increase would be minute. It's really not enough to be concerned about.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Carla.
Thank you.
The Harbor Master Department.
You're doing such a fine job there. Good evening.
Good evening.
It feels a little odd to be sitting on this side of the table. Again, thank you for having me tonight.
Would you rather be there or here?
No comment. No comment. is again, I run the Harbor Master Department now. I'm beginning, this is the beginning of my third full year in the Harbor Master Department. As you know, the Harbor Master Department runs the department itself, the town landing, the boat launch ramp, which good news is will be open this weekend, finally. It'll be open for about a week and a half. It'll shut down for about 2 days for final work, and then it'll be good to go. We also run the town marina, the mooring fields. So we're relatively busy, especially this time of year. My budget this year has not changed significantly. It's actually pretty much a level funded budget from last year. There's about a $300 change. It's a very minor change. So on my next slide, please, Dana. Over the last several years, last couple of years that I've been there, we have done what I believe are some significant improvements to the department. We installed an automated ramp fee collection system. It used to be an honor box that people put money in and didn't really work out real well. It was hard to maintain. This system generates a ticket much like a parking system would generate. You put it in your car, so we know if people paid, didn't pay, and at the end of the day it gives me a computerized tally of monies, which matches the amount of cash in the machine, and so financially it's much easier to keep track of the money. We did purchase a 25-foot safe boat to replace the Parker, our older Parker. That was done with a combination of grant monies and internal monies within the department. We upgraded our computer system. We installed the fiber optic connection down to our department to connect to town hall so I can get on the town's financial system. It also allowed me to upgrade the phone system to meet the standards for the rest of the town. We have all new radio system thanks to the U.S. Coast Guard. They gave us a donation of new base station radios, which are much more powerful. They work much better. I got some portable radios through a grant. The new launch ramp, as I just talked about, and we have managed to maintain a positive balance in our retained earnings account during the last 2 years. I believe as of last June, it was around $80,000. The money from the Parker, which sold for $48,000 actually on auction, will go back into my retained earnings because that money came out of the retained earnings when they purchased the boat. So I believe in the last 2 years we've accomplished a fair amount down there. I've reorganized the staff down there and the positions of the staff and what they're responsible for. So I believe it's working out very well. Looking forward, the major project I'm looking on this year, the end of this year and into next year, is the purchase and the installation of a harbor management software system, which we did a demonstration for the manager and for finance. It allows me to take all the data we have now, which is in 3 ring binders that are about this thick, and you're always trying to find the right pieces of paper for mooring permits and et cetera, and put it all into one system. I think it's going to be much more efficient way of running the department, much easier to retrieve data when we need it. So I'm looking forward to getting that up and running. We used to do permits for the floating piers that some people have around town, not the piled piers, but the floating piers, and that kind of had gone by the wayside, so we're reinstituting that system this year, and keeping track of those, because some of them tend to degrade, shall we say, over the years, and tend to float around the harbor, and then we gotta go get the pieces.
Is that something you have to coordinate with the Conservation Commission, that particular one?
To a point, only parts of it. If they're existing, then no. And actually, according to state law, it's my jurisdiction, my authority to issue permits for the floating piers, unless they negatively impact vegetation, seagrass, eelgrass, things like that. Piled piers, where it's an actual pier construction, is a whole different, that's conservation, that's Army Corps of Engineers, that's a long, involved process. Ours is more of a very straightforward, it's a mooring permit for all intents and purposes, because they are moored on the bottom of the pier, the harbor. As I said, I've reorganized the command personnel and their responsibilities, and was now looking at a multi-year effort to get dredging done for the marina area, which is silting in. I'm going to lose some of the marina pretty soon, next couple of years, because of silting issues. And it's now also become apparent that the main mooring area that runs between the town marina and Cottage Park and down towards Crystal Cove is also silting in. At low tide, parts of that are only like 4 or 5 feet of water, which for a main mooring area is nowhere near enough water. So we're gonna have to start looking at doing a dredging project somewhere down the road here, 3 or 4 or 5 years from now. It's gonna be a very, very large, expensive, it'll run into the millions of dollars. So we're gonna have to start looking at that. Again, hopefully we can do that through bonding and through harbor management, the harbor department's revenue to pay for a bonding issue, which they've done in the past. So I'm working with the Harbor Management Committee on that issue. That's pretty much what I have. If anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Questions?
Quick question. Thank you, Larry, for the presentation. You did a good job. And just a question, if you could just talk a little bit about, I'm sure you get concerns from citizens about the parking situation and the spots and what's available and what's not available, and especially with the
Down the
new-
landing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, what people don't understand sometimes is the town runs the landing under a land use agreement with the state. And under that agreement, there are, and I don't have them right off the top of my head, but there are a specific number of spots that have to be set aside for boats and trailers, because that was built as a boat launch facility. It's a constant battle every year with people telling them they can't park in spots that they believe are wide open spots, but I have to leave so many spots open for boats and trailers because of the launch ramp. We do try to be as flexible as we can. Certainly during the week, we don't get a lot of launches during the week. It's quiet. I'll let people park pretty much wherever they want. I'm not going to harass them. But on the weekends is when we run into the issue. We try very hard to keep all the boats and trailers as tightly closed, in as small an area as we possibly can, to leave as many spots open as we can. There are times, 4th of July, parking down there is a nightmare. If Winthrop Yacht Club has a big event, and no offense to Winthrop Yacht Club, because I belong to Winthrop Yacht Club, sometimes they think it's their private parking lot, but it becomes an issue. I've had people park right in the middle of the travel lanes. It gets ridiculous sometimes. We do try very hard to manage the parking lot as best we can. It's a small lot. It can only hold so many cars.
And just if you could quickly talk about, we have a new boat launch ramp, which is excellent, how the fee structure is this year, and
Yep.
how it might be different than in years past.
The fee structure is staying the same this year as it was last year. I do have permission from Fish and Game, because I have to get permission from them to change any of the fees down there. The town can't make that decision, because again, they own the boat launch ramp. Well, it seems that they own the boat launch ramp when it's not costing any money. When it costs money, we seem to own the boat launch ramp and the parking lot. But we're keeping it the same this year. I am looking at maybe next year, there's a possibility it might go up a little bit, because I'm gonna have to maintain, if you haven't seen it, the new facility down there, along with the ramp, they built a pier and a gangway and floats, so when you launch your boat, you can tie up, you can walk up, move your vehicle, you can do it pretty much by yourself. The first year, I don't have to maintain that. It's covered under the warranty, I guess you'd call it, from the contractor. Starting next year, I'm gonna have to maintain that facility. So that's gonna cost me some more money. It's still, even if we go up, it's still the best deal around. Free parking. Boat launch ramps are very hard to come by these days. Public ramps are. There's a lot of private ramps, but public are very hard to come by these days.
Thank you.
Larry, how does your department interact with the ferry?
Well, we obviously maintain the facility that the ferry docks at. We answer a lot of questions. That seems to be the biggest question we get during the day, is people coming in asking questions about the ferry schedule, how it runs, when it runs, things like that. We don't have a great deal of direct interaction with the ferry, only because it's an independent enterprise account on its own. I don't pay the employees. They're all paid out of that enterprise account. They don't report to me. They report to the ferry manager. So we have some interaction. We certainly pump out the ferry with our pump out program, which is the other thing, by the way, the Harbor Department runs, is the pump out program, the Clean Vessel Act. So we do that for them. And we'll help out if there's an issue and they need repairs or whatever. If I can lend them somebody a pair of hands to help out, we'll certainly do that. We work as closely as we can, but I don't have a direct responsibilities for the ferry.
Any further questions or comments from the council? Thank you, Larry.
Thank you very much.
Good job.
Look for Public Library.
Hi,
How you doing?
good. How are you?
Very good.
So there's 2 sheets for everybody. Hi, I'm Diane Wallace, Library Director. I have a few slides. I'll wait till you get the papers because some of the information, well, they did come. The slide information came from these sheets here. I don't know if you've
Diane, by the way,
seen that.
congratulations on that program last week.
Oh, thank
the
you.
library sponsored
Oh,
us.
thanks for reminding me. I
Excellent.
want to thank everybody that came. We were pretty pleased with it as well and hope to make it an annual event, so
Good job.
thank you. Thank you. There's two sheets. Are there enough?
Not enough of the money ones.
Yeah, I do. This is a look at FY18, the last complete fiscal year, and those of you that were at Finance Committee saw it already. Just business is booming at the library. We have 11 staff, 7 full-time, 4 part-time, and we're busy every day. We have programs almost daily for kids. Sometimes we have more than one a day. When I first came here in 2015, we had 1 program all summer. And now, like I said, we have at least 1 every day and sometimes 2. So there's huge increase in programming for kids, and the attendance is great. We try to have a lot more for adults. Adults are harder to get out. Parents make sure their kids get to everything that's free, and we have had some great programs, so that's been a lot of fun. Technology, we have 13 public computers and they're in use constantly. You probably see the kids rushing over after school to be the first one to get their hour on the computer. But we have adults all day long checking their email, applying for jobs. And one of the new services we have that one of the part-time staff suggested is Tech Tuesdays. And she spends an hour and a half or so on Tuesdays working with people. They bring in their phones. There was a kid over there just now with his laptop, and he was trying to get on Ancestry.com, and he was calling his grandparents to get their birth dates and things so that he could look them up. It was really cute. And people have been really pleased with that. She's got, and she's been helping the other staff learn a lot of the things as well. If you brought your Kindle in or an iPad, the younger staff is pretty savvy with that stuff. So it's been a lot of fun. We're a proud member of the Noble Network. We could not exist without the Noble Network. They train us in everything. We're getting a new platform for our catalog. It's going to be web-based starting next month, and they've been training us to get ready for that. I don't know if any of you access Overdrive, the ebooks on Libby. The new app is amazing. And there's all these magazines that you can download, and you just flip through them just like it's the real magazine. It's crazy. The numbers have gone sky high, so we're always thrilled to see that. So our budget is just basically contractual obligations, I think, and the increases. The rest is what it should be. We do have to meet certain requirements for state aid. We have to spend 15% of the overall budget on library materials. And that library line does come up short, but I can make up for it in donated funds. We've been very fortunate in the past few years to get quite a few donations, large donations that we can access for library materials. And we're also very lucky because the Friends of the Library support all of our programming, all the programs that we have and all of the craft supplies. None of that money comes from the town. It all comes from either the Friends or the Cultural Council. Or donations. We have a jar on the counter, and that's how we pay for all the crayons and glue and beads and the summer reading program. And summer reading's going to be great this year. Instead of some whatever the current craze is for a prize, we're going to give a membership to the Science Museum. So that was Mary Lou's idea, and I thought it was a great idea, so little incentives. So that's the highlights. Anybody? Is that enough?
Questions from the councilors? Councilor Christopher?
When someone uses an ebook through Overdrive or Libby, how does the library in turn pay for that? Is it like a licensing fee for the usage?
Right, we pay through Noble. They keep all the statistics and they divide it up. Like our next year's budget will pay for usage this year. There's a whole formula that I don't even know how they work it out so that it's fair. But yeah, I like the ebooks because we don't have to cover them. We don't have to check them out. We don't have to put them back on the shelf. When they're due, they come back. We don't have to call people and ask them to return them. So, and more and more people are really enjoying the ebooks. I use both. A lot of people use both. Whatever's available.
Anyone else?
Can you, go ahead, Rich. Go ahead. I just wanted to allude to the capital budget that you are going to get some repairs, very needed repairs that have been backlogged for quite a few years. A new roof, new windows, some new carpeting, and some other things hopefully that you'll be getting. So we're watching it and we want to make sure that that happens for you.
Thank you. Great.
Jimmy?
No, I was just going to talk about the capital losses.
Anyone else? Thank you, Diane.
Okay, thank
And
you.
your staff?
Thanks. Okay, thanks.
Inspectional services.
Hi. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sharon Ciccarella. I'm the health inspector for the town of Winthrop. I work for Inspectional Services. And just to give you an idea of what Inspectional Services handles, we handle the building permits, electrical permits, plumbing permits for the town. We do enforcement of Massachusetts state building codes. We also do enforcement of state sanitation codes. We do certificate of inspection, certificate of occupancies. We handle the zoning ordinance. We do general trash enforcement. We also handle the flood maps. We do habitability inspections. For the health department, I do the restaurant inspections. I'm the burial agent, the part-time health clerk. I also handle rodent control for the town, the rodent control is ongoing right now and growing as we speak with the summer coming. We also have a problem property task force that we deal with that generates a lot of money and results in 40 U violations. We have done approximately about 437 building permits, and we handle all those manually. We have, we also have a program that we're trying to implement with the Problem Property Task Force. We're trying to start a new hoarding task force because we realize that the town of Winthrop does have some challenges when it comes to hoarding, possible squatting, and mental health issues. So with all this being done, everything in our office is done manually. So we would like to hopefully bring a new system in that we could benefit from, and it would result in with us bringing in more money, and it would help with more, funding for the town. It would we'd work with Viewpoint, and that would result with us working with the assessor's office as well as the tax office, so we wouldn't miss anything. And again, it would be the manpower. We could definitely benefit from that. So.
That would be something like the inspectors would use iPads and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Contractors could actually apply for permits.
Yeah, right now, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So everything's paper-based right now. Nothing's web-based. You can't do anything over the internet, unfortunately. So we want to, one, give them the ability to provide a modern level of service, and also provide web-based services and things like that. They're quite critical right now. And actually, when we do talk about the audit, the number one thing in the manager's letter is about bringing on, was it a web-based permitting system? Yeah. Or a digital permitting system.
Mm-hmm.
It is definitely one of our blind spots, and it needs to be rectified as soon as possible.
So with our employment that we have down there, we only have one full-time commissioner. I'm full-time, and another building clerk is full-time. Everybody else is part-time. So everything we do is manual, like Mr. Faison just said. So it would definitely help everybody.
Questions from the council? No?
Are you able to generally keep up with the day-to-day inquiries? And I know I get a lot of phone calls about inspectional services. Are you able to, with the staff that you have, really keep on top of a lot of that work, or do you think that that's
It's
something?
difficult.
Yeah.
It's challenging. We would love to have another full-time code enforcement officer in our office if we could, depending on the budget.
Anybody else? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good job.
The rink.
Good evening, I'm Bob Demento. I run the rink, finishing up my 5th season down there. My budget, pretty straightforward. I don't get any funds from the town. It's all self-supported through the ice rentals and a little bit of advertising money we get down there. We do have, thanks to your vote 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago, we got that new Zamboni, which has been great. And as part of that, we were getting approved to do funding for the new locker rooms, which we are still in the process of doing the design. We've had some different delays, but we hoped, recently, our architect told us that we could be this summer getting the plans and we'd be ready to go. And then it would be a matter of if we're going to take that next step and get the funding and do it. I don't know, any questions on the numbers or anything?
Anybody? Jimmy?
I think it's, quite impressive the job you've done down there with the conditions and some of the locker rooms. I know we did get geotech surveys back that had to do boring samples in front of the rink to make sure it was suitable to put a slab down, and they said it was suitable to put a slab down for a single-story structure there. So I really hope that goes forward as soon as possible.
Can I ask you a question about
Yes.
the actual? So you're going to build off of the rink? Is that what you're
Well,
going to
the
do?
plan would be to build in front of the rink to the right of the lobby. The lobby kind of juts out 20-odd feet, 22, 23 feet. And so it would be where buses used to park years ago. It wouldn't affect parking at all. It would just continue the lobby line all the way down towards the end of the building. So it's basically like 22 by 100, 100-ish feet, which would include 4 locker rooms. It would include bringing the restrooms up to code for public restrooms. Then it would be locker room 1, bathroom, shower, locker room 2, locker room 3, bathroom, shower, locker room 4. It's an incredible area to have a rink, and we're extremely fortunate to have Bobby running it and to have the rink there because we're so close to Boston and everybody wants to be in Boston. And we have an Olympian gold medalist, which the rink is named after, or the facility is named after, which helps a lot. If Bobby could just tell us a little bit about some of the tenants you have coming in, and for example, a tournament we have coming in the fall, and why.
So,
it comes
last year we had the Boston Blades women's professional team. That was great. They brought in $30,000 for the rink last year. This year they went to Worcester, but we were able to survive that loss. I think we made up a little bit of it, but the revenue would be lower this year due to that. Now, next year we have the Suffolk University men's club team. They've played a few games and practiced here the last couple of years, and they'd like to utilize that room that the Blades had, and they're going to pay rent to the gym to use that room, and they're going to have all of their games and practices at the rink. So that would be great. And there's a elite hockey tournament. It's like a national thing, and they want to come to Boston next year and play at multiple rinks, and they're going to play at our rink. That'd be in late October. So, and it's all really about having the right locker rooms. If anyone's been down there to see, we really only have one real locker room because it's the only locker room that has any kind of bathroom off of it. And then 2 of the other locker rooms are just rooms. They're decent size, and then the other one is not very big that we use as a 4th locker room. So
the rink is fortunate to have, pretty much from Thanksgiving through March, we consider it, almost 100% utilized. However, it's 100% utilized from 4 to 10 at night. We don't have the utilization during the day, which is where, if you had the proper facilities, you have junior teams that are always looking for a new home, and there's multiple junior teams coming up every year, boys and women's. And we've had inquiries about providing services for such a team, which would be great for us because it would be in the afternoons. These are kids that are out of high school, taking gap years between college before they're playing. So they utilize ice when all the kids are in school, and we don't utilize ice. So even though we look at ourselves as 95% full, we're not using that capacity in the day that this would generate. So I thank Bobby for the tremendous job he's done.
Any further questions, comments? Thanks, Bob.
All right, thank you.
The school department. Superintendent, welcome.
Thank you. So, good evening. I'm Lisa Howard. I am the superintendent of Winthrop Public Schools. In September of the upcoming school year, I will be entering my 30th consecutive year as a public school educator, 26 of those which have been in Winthrop. Hence the reason I have to now wear glasses, but I did start when I was 11, so I'm not really that old. So thank you for allowing me to speak tonight on behalf of the Winthrop Public Schools, our school committee, our staff, and the 1,999 students that we have the pleasure of teaching every day. I would imagine you've had a chance to go over the needs-based budget I presented to the FinCom and the school committee in the past. I want to give you a little bit of background. This budget was developed using a new approach, a ground-level budget approach. We started with looking at contractual obligations of staff and services, moving to the identification of the needs of each school building relative to staffing, facility maintenance, technology, curriculum, and safety. The administration has included key stakeholders throughout this process, including but not limited to multiple staff input meetings, parent and staff surveys, and discussions with the community. The combined input, along with a detailed review of the district strategy, school improvement plans, the school department's goals, and use all of those things as a guide to the final development of the needs-based budget that you've reviewed. The administrative team, along with myself, spent 5 months in which we conducted a district-wide building review of curriculum, textbooks, materials, supplies, consumables, durables, contracts, staffing plans, class size, student growth and achievement, ELL service obligation, special education service obligation, transportation costs, out-of-district costs, projections, facility contracts, buildings and grounds costs, substitute teaching costs, technology costs and replacement plans, professional development needs, safety and security costs and projections, the district's strategic focus areas, school improvement plans, staff contractual obligations, athletic costs, revolving accounts, grants, projected enrollment, all in preparation for the FY20 budget recommendation. The request also includes a comprehensive demographic review, an analysis of student profiles, and an accounting of the known ESE initiatives that are mandated by the state. Some of the efficiencies that we have conducted as we were busy reviewing all of those things, some noted efficiencies that we have been working on to help with budgetary deficits and budgetary right-sizing. We have done a complete residency policy and review to ensure that all the students attending the Winthrop Public Schools are actual residents of the community. We have looked at the charter and vocational school enrollment, and we've reached out to parents of the charter schools and vocational schools to ask them about their intent for the upcoming school year. We have right-sized and reviewed many service contract agreements, negotiating different rates to get a better rate for a longer-term contract. We developed a capital improvement plan that we've just most recently finished. We have changed the fee structure of Miller Field and reviewed it multiple times. We've done a transportation review and contract revision for outside transportation for both special education and the athletic transportation. We've reviewed circuit breaker. We've looked at our oversight of circuit breaker and how we do our claiming, and revised that to maximize the amount of circuit breaker claiming that we are to receive. We did a strategic review and creative planning of the use of substitutes in the school district, providing incentives for less substitute payout. We have instituted a fellowship program with Salem State University to bring on teaching fellows at a very low cost so that they can add to the repertoire of teachers that we have, providing direct service to our students. And most recently have worked on E-rate submissions and understanding and learning how we can maximize our E-rate for technology reimbursement. I think it's important that I just bring your attention to something related to the grants that we have. So we have quite a few grants that we are eligible for. We've reviewed those grants to make sure that we're maximizing our use of the grants. But I think it's important to note, of the grants, we have a significant amount of salaries embedded in those grants that offset the budget. So for instance, the IDEA grant, which is a special education grant, $491,132 is used out of that grant to pay for teachers. We pay for 10 ESPs, 1 secretary, 1.71 teachers. We pay for a half-time physical therapist and 2 ABA specialists. The SPED Early Childhood Grant, $20,000 worth of funding, offsets our budget to pay for an additional ESP. Our Title I grant pays for 3.5 teachers for the total amount of $264,182. Our Title IIA grant, we charge a 0.5 ELL teacher to that grant for $25,000 and change. Title III grant, we charge a 0.5 teacher for $21,650. For a total of $822,055 worth of teaching positions, all funded out of grants to offset the budget. Similar to that, all of those grants have some change left over, so we try to separate it. The law is pretty specific about supplanting teacher salaries in grants, and they want you to use those grants as supplemental to your budget. It's a little bit difficult to do when you have a budget that's tight. However, we do the best that we can. The scary thing is, if those grants go away, we have no ability to pay those teachers out of our general fund. But on top of teaching salaries, we also use grant money for $250,767 for other services in special education, like additional speech and language, occupational therapy, materials, supplies, technology, and the same thing for Title I, as well as some of our ELL grants. So the proposed budget that you have had the opportunity to review is intended to reflect a transparent budget process and is tied to our district's strategy, school improvement plan, teacher, administrator, and superintendent goals, and the commitment to providing a high educational programming, co-curricular activities, and sports for our students. The proposal continues our efforts to address not only our students' academic needs, but their social and emotional well-being, engagement in their own learning, state and federal requirements as measured by MCAS, and the ongoing efforts to bring our program improvements and overall efficiencies in line. We are committed to our full mission while striving to be good partners with our community at all times. Strong public schools build the knowledge and skills of young people that they need to be successful in this global knowledge-based world. Public schools are providing opportunities for more than 50 million students who are learning and growing inside our school buildings so that young people can become college-ready, career-ready, and life-ready following high school graduation. Winthrop Public Schools teachers and support staff are teaching close to 2,000 students the skills that they need to succeed in this global knowledge-based world. Our teachers and principals and support staff are the key to helping our students succeed and thrive in our town. We are preparing every student to become college-ready, career-ready, and life-ready following graduation, and that includes a rich curriculum that includes and goes beyond the basics of academics. For example, social-emotional learning, technology guidance, and training to help students navigate the complex world of social media, fast-moving technology, conflict resolution skills, and making informed decisions about building positive relationships, and giving them research experience to broaden problem-solving skills and positive behavioral support systems. Winthrop Public Schools offers students and families an array of opportunities to ensure that all the students' needs are met as they are prepared for the future. The opportunities include such things like AP classes, peer monitoring, athletic programs, club activities, ELL classes for parents, international nights for families, kindness clubs, after-school enrichment classes, summer enrichment opportunities, and rich academic curriculum. We are working hard to build a safe, supportive, and welcoming education and environment and community for our students, where all students are treated with equity and respect. Our dedicated teachers, administrators, counselors, custodians, cafeteria workers, nurses, bus drivers, crossing guards, and support staff are committed to providing the best education possible for our students. Professional development in Winthrop Public Schools, which is mandated by law, goes far beyond the academic arena for the possibilities for our entire staff. We are intently focused on providing additional PD and trainings on school-based safety, social-emotional learning, and recognizing the signs of depression, suicide, substance abuse, and trauma with staff and students, and we are in the process of designing a parent, guardian, family education component. It is also our intent to continue to work on restorative justice practices and institute restorative circles with our students to further promote healthy discussion and reflective resolution practices. We welcome families and community members to get engaged and to see the great things that we are doing within our schools, such as drama, music, arts, art production, sporting events, school committee meetings, community service projects, and academic showcases in math, history, science, and international nights. We encourage the community to recognize our success and the success of our students and staff by highlighting our achievements weekly in the Winthrop newspaper, on our school websites, social media channels, and with the superintendent visiting local establishments within this community. This year, we will partner with the community and participate, and we have, in the Winthrop Engages and Civic Engagement Resource Program, in which we will highlight the role of our school system as a community partner. So I have to go backwards, and I know that's a lot, but you guys only gave me a few minutes. Page one, thanks. So this has been by far one of the most difficult presentations for me to prepare for in 2 years. Most of you know that I'm not necessarily short on words when it comes to public education and advocating for the students of Winthrop and the families that we serve. Condensing the past history of under-level service budget practices and the impact of this continued practice is a conversation that would typically take me more than a full day, and that's a short time for me. But it would typically take that long for me to get you to understand and grasp the totality of the impact that such practices had on our students and our community over the past years, many of which I had been here. Just to give you a snapshot, in 2016, we received a below-level service budget in which we had to cut $378,000. In 2017, we received a below-level service budget in which we had to cut $400,000 from the previous year. In 2018, we were getting a little better, and we only had to cut $71,391 from a level service budget. In 2019, we had to cut $174,000 from a level service budget. Each one of those budgets didn't come remotely close to the amount of money the school district had requested to have our students receive an education on a level playing field. I ask that you take a look at that budget that we presented, the needs-based budget, and as you review that budget after tonight's meeting and after your questions are answered, that you support that budget and that you provide the students of Winthrop and the community of Winthrop with the opportunity to right-size our school budget and take our students to a place in the future where they will be able to compete with other communities and other students in the surrounding communities, like I said, on a level playing field. So that's sort of the background of some of the successes. I'd like to really give a huge shout out. I put the principals and the staff of the Winthrop Public Schools through a budget process that they, one, didn't anticipate, and two, weren't relatively thrilled with. until they got to the end of that budget process. They did what I've been told a million times not to say, but they did a zero-based budget. They were handed a piece of paper and given direction to tell me what their school needed, and not a budget line item, not an old budget that said you have $50 in this line, that's what you can spend, tell me what you're gonna do with it. I gave them nothing and asked them to tell me what they needed, and then I made them go back to the schools and interact with the people who were in the classroom every day, or who are cleaning the bathrooms, or who are cleaning up the cafeteria, mowing the lawn, or fixing the boiler. I asked them to do that and then sit down and review it, and then as the principal of the building and the instructional leader who makes the decisions in their building, to take a look at that budget and determine what they truly, truly felt they needed as that building leader in their building, and then send that back to me. Each principal reviewed and used a spreadsheet that had over 32 pages worth of data that they had to collect. I asked them to look at every book, and categorize every book. Give me the date that it was bought and the date that it expires. Look at every contract. Tell me where the contract came from, why you have it, why do you still need it, and can you make a call and see if you can get that contract cheaper. Give me the proposal to show me how you can do that. And we took all of that information, sat down together, looked at it, and put it into one document. We have probably, I would imagine, over 2,000 pieces of paper that all combined led to the budget that you have in front of you. Every one of those budget line items has a stack of papers that's dated to support exactly what they were asking for. I can tell you what goal it's tied to in the strategic plan. I can tell you what goal each piece of equipment they're asking for, each teacher they're asking for, or each piece of curriculum that they're ordering. I can tell you what goal that's tied to in the strategic plan and the school improvement plan. More importantly, each one of the teachers in the school can tell you what they ordered, what goal it's tied to in their school improvement plan, how it relates to their evaluation as a teacher. I can tell you how it relates to the goals of the evaluation of the principals. To me, as a longtime Winthrop president, I don't know anything that could be more transparent than a budget that you can turn and tie the data to support exactly what you're looking at, and then turn around and tie that to the strategic plan, to the school improvement plan, to the superintendent's goals, to the principal's goals, and to the goals in the teacher evaluation process. I give you all that information because I'm super proud of the process that I put the teachers through, and that the journey they took with me. And our final document that came out to you was a true reflection of what the Winthrop Public Schools believes they need in order for our students to make progress, irregardless of what the past was. This is what we believe the future is for our students. And I'll entertain any questions that you may have. Hopefully I can answer them.
Superintendent Howard, first of all, I thank you for your recommendation. Number two, thank you for your dedication to the children of Winthrop. You've done a fantastic job since you've been brought on board about 2 years ago. And I am very proud to say that we work as a member of the school committee with you, and you've done a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Having said that, I know the state is relooking at state aid as it pertains to education. How does that look right now in terms of any additional funds from the state?
So in terms of the Chapter 70 reallocation, that's, if anybody has followed it, it's 25 years of a broken formula. So if you think about how you did things 25 years ago, just in general, including how you get up in the morning, it's a little bit different now. So when you look at that formula that hasn't been changed in 25 years, and you couple that with all of the mandates that the Department of Education has put upon school systems, from everything from social emotional learning to test scores to new curriculum to class size to support for students, English language learners, special education, 504 students, discipline, I could go on for days. All of those things have changed, but the formula and the amount of funding a community gets for students has not. So I have been part of many conversations, both at the top level on the Hill, as well as at superintendent conference meetings and special education director meetings that I'm still a part of. Without the push of superintendents, principals, and teachers in the Commonwealth, I don't think it ever would have happened. I think the pressure has been on so heavy and so hard, and people haven't taken their foot off the gas pedal in terms of the demand to right-size that funding source. I think it's gonna come. I don't think it's gonna come this year. I think we have a little bit of time. My goal would be to ask the community of Winthrop to take the ride until that happens. It is something that is definitely gonna happen. There's so much push from the legislative side as well as the superintendent side that no one's gonna let go of it. So when they get that done, I would imagine it would be within a year or so. And I do, based on the numbers that I've seen, believe that the town of Winthrop would see quite a bit of benefit from that. And it would be the opportunity for us to, from that point forward, begin to make some progress and really end this history of not being able to fund the school district at what the request is, and in fact have to fund it lower than level service. And we did see some increase in Chapter 70, some of the efficiencies we have made at the school district's level to support that. We've looked at our, the way we input the data for our individual students is how you get revenue. So you have to make sure that you're calculating your students and putting your student information into the State Department's website in a manner that reflects that particular child. Have every single special ed student accounted for, every student with ELL services, every Title I student put into the computer system effectively. In our deep dive of that system, it was just a matter of education about how those students get calculated. So I believe we've seen an increase in some of our grants based on that. My biggest worry with Chapter 70 is where is the money coming from? So when they change that formula, what is that formula going to affect? Circuit breaker funding, when I put my other hat on the state board for special ed directors, we're advocating very strongly that they don't touch the circuit breaker formula. But if they do, you're going to get a little more over here and they're going to take some away here. My fear with the change in the formula is they go after some of the grants that we, in this district and many other small districts, rely heavily on the $800,000 worth of salaries I just talked about. Should those grants go away, like the year we had the funding cliff from the ARA money that we received, we'd be in trouble. So if they can change Chapter 70 and leave everything else alone, I think we'll be in good shape, but I don't foresee us seeing the benefit of that until next year.
Thank you. Any questions from the councilors? Oh, I'm sorry, Peter?
Sure. So there was a discrepancy between the town manager's recommended or proposed budget and what you have as your recommended budget. What would that mean in terms of personnel if we were to maintain the town manager's recommended budget and not go with the needs?
So the needs-based budget was, and hope you're sitting so we're in good shape, was close to $2.8 million in the needs-based budget of an increase from last year. That didn't happen overnight. That's not $2.8 million of an epiphany that we had between last year's budget and this year's budget about what we needed. That's a culmination of many years of beneath level service funding, and therefore those needs that we had didn't go away. We still have the same, if not more, children. So that level service, there's a big gap in between that, and I'm very, very aware of the financial constraints of the community. It's my job as a superintendent to tell the story of what the school district needs, and not to tell the story about what we need, but don't ask for too much because we don't have enough. My goal is to tell you about what we need, so that when something happens in the school district, whether it's a facility issue or whether it's an MCAS score, and we weren't able to fund something, I'm able to tie and track what our problem is to where it came from. So that's a huge gap. In terms of the manager's number, I'm not sure which number they're going off of, so you tell me what number you have and I'll tell you what the potential cut might look like.
So if you go...
This one? This one, 21,155. That's the increase of 1,1.
Yeah, that one. And that, because this relies, so her number relies on my number plus the House proposed budget as well. The Senate is a little bit more aggressive, so we tried to choose a conservative angle. So that gets us to $21,155,036.
So if so $21,155,036 and $36 is about $533,346 and a little change, less than what a level service budget would be for us. So level service budget is same amount of people, The line items are going to look a little bit different based on the fact that we right-sized our budget to reflect direct needs, but the amount of money in expenses is not different. So it would be $533,342 that we would have to cut from our current level service budget. What would that look like? That would, at this point, after going through every staff member that we have and every piece of paper, pencil, book, and piece of technology and contractual obligations that we have, you're looking at teaching staff and ancillary staff. I can't find in our budget, I mean, we cut some more supplies. We froze our budget this year in November. So in November of 2018, we put a freeze on the budget. From that point forward, any purchase order in the school district had to cross my desk before it went to Susan. And it had to do that because it had to be a critical need. Do another year of not being able to buy anything, you're going to see some significant impacts on student learning, on test scores, social emotional well-being. I can tell you that the cut in teachers will be directly reflected in class size. I can give you an example of class size. So I have a crosswalk of class size this school year, class size for next school year, and I did it based on what it would look like if we had to cut staff from any one of those levels. Our average class size this year in kindergarten, if you recall, last year was a hot mess. It is now, instead of having 6 kindergarten teachers, we have 7. Class size in kindergarten is 22.4. First grade is 26, sorry, I'm in the wrong column. 22.4. Class size in first grade is 19. Class size in second grade is 20. There are 7 teachers in each one of those grades. Those are actually average class sizes across schools in general. If we have to cut any one of those teachers, I'll give you an example. Class size of 19 with 7 teachers in first grade. If we had to cut a first grade teacher down to 6 teachers, you would go up to a class size of 26. We're pretty consistent across the entire district right now with our class size. Elementary's averaging 21. 3rd through 5th is averaging 21 to 22. 6, 7, and 8 is averaging 22 in one class of 23. Any one of those all of those classes have 7 teachers in them. The second you make it 6 teachers, class size average goes up. If we were to reduce an 8th grade teacher down from 7 teachers, class size is 22. If we were to reduce that down to 6 teachers, average class size would be 26. So when you're left with only staff to cut, you can't cut things that you've signed contracts for. Can't cut, the copier contract. Can't cut, any of the contracts we have with teachers. That we have contractual obligations with our teaching staff. We looked at every single salary and moved everybody on a step and anticipated lanes. Our teachers in the current contract, they're very good about it, but they don't technically have to notify us if they're making a lane change till after the budget is done, and quite frankly, it's in September. We did a survey, and the teachers were amazing and answered the survey and gave me a heads up if they were going to move a lane. They knew it was so we could do the budget properly. So to answer your question, it would be staff for the most part, which would there's 25,000 impacts of large class size, everything from being able to control the students that we have and safety and address social emotional well-being. But larger class size, just Google it and see what it tells you at every grade level. It's not good.
And I remember the conversation from the fall that we had issues around going above what the state mandated level was. Would we be in danger of going above that in class sizes?
So what was interesting with that, kindergarten is the only place that you'll find literature about class size outside of special education. And I had contacted the Department of Ed because somebody brought it to my attention that kindergarten had a class size of not to exceed 25 in state law. And to this day, I have not received anything from the Department of Education that can tell me about the waiver that it says that you can get for students in kindergarten. But kindergarten seems to be the only place outside of special education that has a class size. Quite frankly, in general education, unfortunately, you can have as many students as you need to fit into a classroom. That is not the direction we want to go by any means. Our lower class size, I believe, is what is allowing us to survive with the minimal resources that we have, low class size and amazing teachers, for however long it lasts.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Lisa. Great presentation. I thank Vasily also for bringing up a lot of tremendous points. It's, you know, it's a tough situation all around. You know, level service was roughly 1.8 over, and level
Level
needs-
service was about 1.4, level service is 21,688,382.
Right, so about 1.7 over last year, so 1.8 over last year, and needs about 2.8-ish.
Correct.
And, you know, I think the town has to make a decision at some point as to how we're gonna fund the schools. The fact of the matter is that I think the town has roughly 1.7-ish, 1.8-ish in new money over last year. And you know, in the proposal, I think it's gone up a little to slightly over $1 million for the school, which on the surface looks like, wow, that's pretty impressive. We're giving 60-odd%, close to 60% of new money to the schools. However, you know, the needs are there to justify a lot more money. You know, it's incredible the strides that we made. I know several years ago we were looking at class sizes in the 24, 25 range, and we made some progress, and now we don't want to go backwards. I think that, you know, the town also funds a cost of charter schools, a cost of the Northeast Regional Voc, and a cost of Essex Tech of roughly $800,000-ish. Which those children have every right to go there, and we applaud them, and they're getting some tremendous services. It's incredible that since we've built the new high school, people have taken advantage of it, and we've seen a reduction in the cost of the vocational schools because I think more people are staying in Winthrop, which is great. But you have issues, not you have issues, but with the state on sped funding. I mean, we fund tuitions as much as we possibly can. Circuit breakers are supposed to offset that to a point. There could possibly be a reduction in the circuit breaker percentage, and we could lose money there. Ideally, we would be prepaying tuitions, and we're lucky to pay the tuitions we have for the coming year. So it's not, we're not allowing ourselves to get ahead at all.
We are doing some other things in terms of revenue that I think are important to point out.
Mhm.
So we have an international program. It's called the I-20 program, where we take international students and commit them for a year. It's a little different than school choice in that they pay us more, and you only commit for one school year. Our international account, this year the revenue was $114,000 drawn in on revenue for that account, which allows us to pay $81,090 in teacher salaries to offset the budget, as well as another $5,511 in other supplies. We have an advocator for them, so we have a teacher assigned that gets a stipend to help those students navigate. Most of them don't speak English, so to navigate our school community and provide services for them, as well as some money in there for technology. Our athletic department this year has revenue at this point in time of $297,923. $144,342 of that is in user fees. I applaud the athletic director and his management team and the effort he put into making sure that we were collecting the revenues, collecting user fees, making accommodations for our students as we needed to through scholarships funded by Viking Pride, but really just paying attention to that detail per sport and reaching out to families to collect those fees and making arrangements if they needed additional support. Ticket and gate money, $32,632 worth of revenue and gate receipts. That's a management issue. That's us going and making sure we're sitting at those games and collecting those receipts, so I applaud him for that. We had some bank interest, which is a beautiful thing, of $948. And then our, right, thank you, Susan. And then our budget, our general budget has two line items in it that are also, they're not revenue, but they're in the line item. Each is a $60,000 line item. The $60,000 line item pays for coaches, and the other $60,000 line item pays for equipment and supplies for athletics throughout the entire school year. The monies that are taken in for the user fees and the ticket and gate receipts pay the winter, the spring and winter, fall and winter coaches. And so in total, we have $297,923 in revenue, and to date, we have $214,015 in expenses. This may be the first time, according to Susan, in quite some time, that athletics may come in the black. And that's management, and that's paying attention to detail, that's freezing the budget in November. That does not include athletic transportation, and so that line will come in a little bit in deficit, so any revenue that's left over in athletics will be potentially put to offset the athletic transportation deficit, which we watch daily, how we ride those buses. So those are just some other revenues beyond the grant that we're able to manage.
And I think it's important to note that we have incredibly dedicated teachers who give a lot of themselves, not only in time, but sometimes of their own money and supplies, because
Correct.
we fall far below state averages in terms of materials and supplies and PD. And it's unfortunate that we count on our teachers to do so much, and then we ask them to do even more with less. So, putting the council hat back on, it's extremely difficult to find a source. We hope that the solar is helping, and we hope that might see reduction in utility lines from solar that we have this year and that we have that you guys have coming on next year. But the fact of the matter is, whatever nickel and dime I could put on my hat here and say, maybe we could save here and there, but there's just usually 10 times that many more expenses that I could look on the other side and say, we've made some good improvements in MCAS scores, and we want to see them continue. We don't want to see them go backwards. I think most of what we do is because of the staff, from the leadership team down to everybody involved, from teachers, support staff, custodians, everybody. It's incredible to see. But the bottom line is, you're not going to, chances are you're not going to see a needs-based budget. Chances are we're not going to see a level service budget. But we have to try to get as close as we can, however we can, to try to bridge that gap and to see and to look more towards. I hate to count on the state because, like you said, it would probably go into one pocket and out of another pocket. You just don't know how it's going to. But I think there's things that I applaud you for putting that zero-based budget out there to give the town, the parents, the council an idea of what the needs really are. And I hope to be able to help you in some way, shape, or form get close to that level of service.
I appreciate that, and I welcome anyone on the council or anyone else who wants to come in and look at a binder that's this thick that shows everything, tying that budget, every budget line item to data to support the need for that, and then we can go even deeper into that if somebody really wanted to question. Every principal has the same binder because they have many more pages that led to that final request that they had. So I would welcome that. My job is to be transparent. I live in this community. I hear the words. I hear people talk about transparency. I hear the people say this isn't transparent. What do you mean? Where are you hiding it? You can find it. You don't find money in a school budget. What you do is you move things around according to priority when you only have so much money. Very similar to your house budget. You pay your mortgage first, and then you go take it from there, and sometimes the electric bill doesn't get it and rolls over into the next season, or to the next month. There is no finding of any money in the budget, and I understand that on the town side as well. Once again, my job is to advocate for what's in the best interest of the students and to make sure that our staff has everything they need in order to do their job so that we can keep them. You see the job they're doing. I don't know how our scores are as good as they are. We came to you in October and came to the town school committee in October and showed them how good our scores are. I want that to last. I am concerned that if we cut additional teaching staff and we raise class size and we can't buy materials and supplies, I just don't know how long the staff can withstand that. We will do with what we receive. But I feel as though, being the superintendent of schools, I needed to tell you the story the way it is, so that you understand when you're making these difficult decisions, the impact of those decisions. So that was important. Any other questions that folks might have?
Anyone else?
Could be the shortest long budget presentation I've ever done.
Thank you, Lisa.
I appreciate it, and I'm available at any time for folks. Just glad there wasn't a Bruins game on.
6 more days, 7 more.
That's a different discussion.
Okay, next item on the agenda is a public hearing. The town council to vote to modify the general fund budgets in the amount of $347,861. This is a housekeeping item. I'll call on Councilor Lettieri to give us a brief overview.
This is more of an exercise that we do as we get close to the end of every fiscal year, trying to look at accounts that might be running in a deficit or we intend to run in a slight deficit, and to look for other accounts that might have some sort of surplus in there to try to even those accounts out. And this motion is basically involving 5 sources, funding sources, 5 accounts to look into 9 accounts that we think, have deficits. The major thing here is snow and ice, which is a yearly thing. It's the one area where the state allows you to underfund it, knowing that you're gonna run a deficit in it, basically. We've come up over the years, a dozen years ago or so, we used to fund it at $20,000, $25,000, knowing that it was gonna be much more. We've tried to get a little more up to date, and we fund that at $140,000, but the fact of the matter is, regardless of the winter, this year we might not have seen as much snow, but we saw a lot of icy conditions, and every time DPW goes out and does the whole town in terms of ice, it's close to a $10,000 expense. So that is usually an account that obviously runs a deficit every year. So these are basically house cleaning issues, and under old business, the finance committee will come up with the appropriate motions for these. But it is a public hearing, and we invite the public to have any questions they might have on this.
I'll open up a public comment on this hearing. Anyone wish to be heard? Any questions? Hearing none. Any questions from the councilors? Okay, we'll close out that public hearing. Correspondence, we have a lot. I'm not going to read them all. I just, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 correspondence received in regards to the school budget. This will be entered into the minutes of the meeting for public access. Also, we received 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 emails regarding the Somerset Ave project down the center in favor, and received 2 opposed. Once again, all of this will be put into the minutes of the meetings. Okay? Committee reports, we'll just hold finance until we get down to old business.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. And town manager's report.
Thank you very much. First, I just want to say I'm very happy that we've had the opportunity over the past couple of months to have these discussions with the department heads, between you all and the department heads actually being able to advocate on their own behalves. I think it's really important because I can make a presentation and run through what my intentions are with the budget, but it's way more important to get the face-to-face time with the department heads and actually understand what their intentions are with their own department. So it was very important for me to, they had the opportunity to advocate to me, they had that opportunity to advocate to you, and they also had the opportunity to advocate to the Finance Commission. So I'm very happy to see some positive interactions between those and some productive ones. So that was very nice to see, and I hope that in the next fiscal year, we will kind of go through a similar process and refine it a little bit. I would be remiss if I didn't mention, I appreciate everything the superintendent is doing with her budget. It is, as a person who has worked on multiple budgets in my career, doing a zero-based budget activity is very difficult. I don't know how she did it on the school side. On the town side, it's next to impossible. It's very hard to get people to understand you start with nothing and what does it take to actually run your department. So going through that procedure and trying to articulate a number for a budget is from my perspective, more advanced than what we were doing on the town side with our budget. So all credit to Lisa and what she is doing in her department. She can articulate better about her needs of the school department than I would say anyone else in town. And I'm very happy that she had the opportunity to come here and advocate on her behalf. And I think it speaks to the precarious nature of our budget that I spoke about during my budget presentation, that we are in a tough situation, full stop. And things like a recession and things like that make this even harder to consider. So we need to think about how we can come to the table and potentially not have to have considerations of over $500,000 worth of cuts from a level service budget. And those are the harder conversations which I have discussed in the past. But again, we need to have these interactions and put this out there so people know what is actually needed. So I appreciate all the time that has been taken up in these meetings over the past couple of months doing these types of presentations, but I felt like it's very important for everyone to have an understanding of what the departments across town are doing, especially the school department, which employs more people than any other department in town and spends more money than any other department in town. That said, very simple matters on my side. The Winthrop Public Boat Ramp reopens this Saturday, as Larry noted earlier. We will have a ribbon cutting ceremony on Tuesday, June 11th at 5 p.m. Following that will be the second annual Harbor Day. And their Winthrop Taxi will be showcasing their new electric shuttles. There will be short cruises out in the water. There's going to be a band there and some local artists. We're trying to figure out a food situation. And Bike Winthrop will be there as well to do some bike rides. And hopefully we will have the Lime bikes in the area by then. So exciting day on June 11th coming up. And I would be remiss if I didn't notice Winthrop Engages. That was an incredibly successful event last week. I think it shows how the town can put together an organic event and kind of do a grassroots effort of promoting it and things like that. And it speaks to how I said it at the meeting, but it starts with voting and it goes from there. We can all kind of look to be civically engaged in different ways, and I want to kind of keep giving the community the opportunity to be engaged in the very delicate business of having the town run and making the community a better place to live. So with that, that's all I have on my end.
Questions? Council President? Couple questions. One is on what Council Boncory mentioned earlier. Can we have some sort of try to retouch with the Attorney General Office, or wherever it happens to be, to get clarification on the marijuana question, so we could be ahead of this matter instead of looking at the last minute, and maybe have something back to us by the second meeting in May? Some clarification.
I think the clerk has been working on that.
Okay.
Yeah, there was an email sent out too, for information.
Oh, for more information on that?
Yeah, and
Okay.
everything, yeah, so.
Okay, great.
And we
Thank
have
you.
till like October 1st is 35 days before.
Right, but we want to try to be ahead of
Yeah,
that, because
yeah,
the summer
that,
comes
yeah.
really quick and goes.
Yeah.
And just a second question, I know Mr. Demento, Michael Demento, has brought up various concerns. I went over to Elmira and saw, the backup over there, and the time I happened to go, it happened to be on a night where there's, not prom, it was the social. And, it was unfortunate that people are trying to take pictures out there with the situation. I know the DPW directors tried to address it, but can we try to get to the root of the problem, if we haven't already, and to see what can be done or what needs to be done to alleviate it? Because it doesn't seem like regular.
Come on. We know the root of the problem. The fact is, it's a 100-year-old sewer main, which isn't that uncommon to many other areas in town. It's got a shallow pitch, so it's not, in today's construction standards, it would be, the rate of velocity that would be trying to be achieved isn't there. There's no question about that. It does function. It requires maintenance. Unfortunately, the fact of the matter is, in a sewer system, blockages, especially with 100-year-old pipes, blockages are, it's maintenance. They're unpredictable. You can never predict when a blockage is going to occur. And part of the job with the sewer department is to respond to blockages. Problem could be made better. It comes down to money. If the town council, if the manager chooses to
allocate funds to repair that sewer main. I don't, I can't stand here in front of you and say that that's the best spent money. It's obviously good spent money to repair things, but there's other areas in town that are just as bad to replace that main, which is probably what is needed. Again, it's a 100-year-old main. You're probably talking $300,000 to $400,000 to make that, to potentially either reroute it down to Brookfield. Right now, that main pitches towards, flows towards Pleasant, and the contour of that road, as we know, Palmyra is an uphill road. So it's very shallow at the Wheelock Street, and it maintains a shallow pitch because it's just the contour of the road. And when the main was put in, there was probably just several houses on that street. Things have changed over time. I don't know that I could actually maintain that, create a better pitch going towards Pleasant. It might have to actually be rerouted down towards Wheelock, around Brookfield, and out to Pleasant that way.
My understanding is that there was 30-odd feet of it replaced a couple decades ago, which is still a long time, but 25 years ago. But so do we think it's more of the pitch
30
itself?
30 feet.
30 feet, which is not, that's what I'm saying, I'm not sure. And that was, like a Band-Aid on a major issue, but.
It was a spark, yeah.
So do you consider this a major job to fix that area? To create that? So you would have to either change the pitch by going towards Wheelock and then down to Brookfield?
What I'm saying is it's not a spark repair. It's not a collapsed main. It's not that. It's the fact that it's a shallow main, that shallow pitched main that is going to continue to back up over time. And when it gets cleared, it operates until another blockage occurs. In order to eliminate that occurrence altogether is to create a better pitch. And right now, we have the engineers looking into, as part of their survey work for the Ingleside Park drainage, I do have them looking into the possibility of improving the hydraulics there and what that means. Whether we can actually get a better pitch down towards Pleasant, which I don't think we can, or rerouting it around to Brookfield.
I mean, potentially you have infrastructure work depending on, again, where money comes from and everything else and the appetite, but at the middle school site, potentially there's going to be infrastructure work there. And there's hopefully going to be something done at Ingleside Park, because we know that's going to probably flood more if there's infrastructure work done at the center. Is that something, like you said, that could potentially be tied into that?
That's what we get the engineers looking at. We want to, with all the survey work that's happening over there, and the camera work, we will put a concept plan together to see if how the hydraulics work. Again, whether it continues towards Pleasant or comes back around down Brookfield. We'll get that information as part of this work. We are there, we're doing it. It's a small expense, additional expense to the work that they're already doing. And then, yeah, I mean, once we start opening roads over there, for drainage work, that is the time to incorporate that work if it's so desired. But even with the company already mobilized, you still have an expense there. So those are the facts of the matter. So it's not a couple dollar fix.
All right, thank you.
It's a full infrastructure job.
Any other questions to the council? To the town manager? No. Okay. School department update, there is none. We did not have a school committee meeting last night under old business. The town council votes to accept MGL Chapter 32, Section 1 for the purposes of eligibility of benefits under Chapter 32, Section 7, 9, or 100, that Fire Chief Flanagan continue to be a member in service. I'll call on the chief for a comment.
Yes, I appreciate, I know some of you struggle with this. I appreciate your time. A little bit about me. I've been on the department 41 years. I was made a lieutenant 8 years into the department. I was made a captain 10 years. So I've been a senior officer in the department for 31 years. If you were brought up in our house, with my father, it was the 3 F's: family, faith, and fire department. And, the only day that faith was ahead of the fire department was on Sunday. So that's how I lived my life. As chief, I've never taken a winter vacation. I always go to Florida in May. And
what's happened is this request isn't all about me. It's my love for the department. You've heard the crisis that it seems like all of the departments are in. But as of the last little while, I put a few, if you'd like to call them fun facts, but they're really very disturbing facts. But within the last 18 months, I lost 132 years just in my captains and lieutenants experience ranks. I have one other captain who now has 35 years, who, he's talking about, possibly calling it quits, which puts it up to almost 170 years of officer experience. I have 38% of my department right now that has less than 1 year, and less than 1 year, they haven't even attended the academy yet. I lost 4 guys in 3 weeks. A month ago, I lost 1 to Lynn, I lost 3 to Massport. I had 1 retire. So right now, I'm down 8 firefighters, and I have 1 firefighter on family leave. So I'm down, out of a 32-man suppression force, I'm down 9 firefighters right now, 1 of them being an officer. And it's not just the firefighters that I've lost, the ones that have 3 or 4 years that just left. It's the ones that had 4 or 5 years that left 10 years ago, because they now would be the media fire department. I just had a generational change at one end, and now you should have this next group moving in, but I don't want to use the word poach. They've been successful in going to other departments. I've lost firefighters to Swampscott, Cambridge, Massport, Lynn, and it's all a money issue. And the police department sees it as well. Public Works sees it now as, in the Public Works end, and I'm not going to speak for Director Caller, but as the unemployment becomes less, the wages are going up and people are shopping. And the success of this town has been fire, police, and public works working together. And there's institutional knowledge that goes with our place. I have spoken to the manager many times that trying to maintain a 21st century fire department is becoming very difficult, if not even feasible, in a town like Winthrop. And, we've had talks with Massport, and we're hoping, and the chiefs all realize it as well. It doesn't matter if you're in Revere, where you have 125 firefighters, you have 10 deputy chiefs, you have 17 captains, 21 lieutenants. They platoon you to death. I go out the door every day with 7 members on the department. And we don't have to go back too far that we had, a house pretty much fully involved at 9 o'clock at night and was blowing 45 miles an hour. And, I had a brand new captain with two brand new firefighters coming down Pauline Street. I was standing in front of the building, completely dressed, waiting for the beach apparatus to show up. It is very important moving forward that we have a fire chief for an understaffed, underfunded fire department in a small town. For the protection of this community, it is very important you have a fire chief that lives within the town. We can always gear up, when they start hyping a snowstorm or coastal flooding, it's 10 days away, it's 8 days away. You can ramp up for something like that. You can't ramp up for what happened on Pauline Street the other night. You can't ramp up when a thunderstorm comes by and all of the streets are blocked with trees or a couple of houses have been struck. It is very important for a small town to have a fire chief who's living in Winthrop. We are nurturing a couple of firefighters within our department to take that position. I am not doing this just for myself. As I told you, being brought up in a house where, we have 126 years consecutively on the Winthrop Fire Department with another 32 years that were done parallel. For the family's got 160 years on the department. I'm not using that as leverage to stay. I'm using it as stability for my department. We're really kind of at a crisis. I have some tremendous people in the ranks. We established a reserve list, first time ever, about 8 months ago, seeing this shortage come. The fire academy is backed up, and we were going to be able to get our first folks in there. In late September, we were able to get 2 in, and the other 5 we're going to get in next January's class, which means I would be down 5, 6 guys for almost a year, which in overtime would just be a crisis for us. As well as it's difficult. I have some firefighters now that are working 140 hours a week to fill my shifts. I'm down 2 firefighters every shift, every day. So what I did do is I made arrangements with the Fire Academy and the new recruits to attend the Mass Fire Academy Springfield campus. They all agreed to do it, and we booked hotel rooms, so they'd be gone Monday through Thursday. It would cost us $15,000 to house them. They'd come home Friday for the weekend. They'd be out there for 10 weeks. Amongst the Metro Fire Chiefs, we were able to convince Commissioner Finn to run a firefighter recruit training program just for Metro communities that had backlogs or had emergencies. I was successful in getting 7 firefighters in that class of 48. So as of July 8th, our 7 firefighters will go off to Moon Island, and they will train with almost a merit course for 10 weeks at the Boston Fire Academy recruit training site. I have 6 firefighters that are coming off probation right now, and you come off probation when you have a year or less of service. I have 7 going, so I would have 13, give or take a couple weeks. I could have had 13 firefighters that were on probation, numbers that are unforeseen. So the real reason behind this request was that just to nurture these couple of gentlemen that are going to actually move back to town. We have residents, we have some of our senior officers have moved out of town. We have one that is going to come back in town. He's in chief officer courses, and he's training every day. And we're hoping that as he gets to a point where, if it's Austin, whoever the town manager is, we're successful in keeping the chief of department within the ranks. It's a credit to my department. I have always been a guy, community, customer service. There's nothing we don't do. We've been to the Arbors over 800 times since it opened. You don't hear any complaints out of the fire department. Sometimes we're there 4 or 5 times a day. This weekend, Saturday being a beautiful day, and Sunday it was a rainy day, but nothing weather-wise, not normal. We had a cellar fire on Lincoln Street, and we had 35 medical aids. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but again, when you have 7 guys on duty, you get 35 medical aids. We had A5 in town. So it's a case that these guys are busy. We've always put a good product on the street, and you have never heard boo out of the fire department union. Tonight they requested on the police swearing in, would it be okay for us to come over, which is proof that fire department, police department, public works, we all work together for a common goal. And my request to this council was, based on my record, based on the Local 1070, the union, that you just give us a vote of confidence to move forward, doing what we're doing. We've installed, the firefighters have installed over 300 smoke detectors at no cost to the residents in town, not in their job description. So we've had great cooperation with the firefighters. They haven't spoken, they've been silent on my request, which is a vote of confidence for me, and I would like you folks to give me a vote, which would be a vote of confidence both for me and for my department.
Thank you, Chief. I'm going to give the gavel to the Vice President. I'll make the motion, and then I'll open it up for questions by the councilors, okay? Submitted by Council President Beckett, given the historic turnover of the Winthrop Fire Department, and as a result of the Town Council's commitment to ensure stability within the department throughout the transition of new personnel and leadership within the ranks, in addition to the importance of having consistency in leadership for the duration of the future capital projects, including the potential construction of a new firehouse. The Town Council of the Town of Winthrop hereby authorizes the filing of a petition with the General Court for special legislation authorizing the town to continue the employment of Fire Chief past the mandatory retirement age of 65, as set forth, provided, however, that the General Court may make clerical or editorial changes of form only for the purposes only to the proposed special act unless the town council approves amendments prior to the enactment of the general court, and to authorize the town council to approve amendments which shall be within the scope of the general public objectives of this petition. An act authorizing the town of Winthrop to continue the employment of Fire Chief Paul E. Flanagan. Section 1. Notwithstanding any general or special law to the contrary, Paul E. Flanagan, Fire Chief of the town of Winthrop, may continue to serve in the position until June 30th, 2023, the date of his retirement, or the date he is relieved of his duties by the town manager of the town of Winthrop, whichever comes first, provided, however, that he is mentally and physically capable of performing the duties of this office. The town manager may, at the expense of the town, require that Paul E. Flanagan may be examined by an impartial physician on or about his 65th birthday, and each year hereafter, on or about his birthday, to determine such capability. No further deduction shall be made from regular compensation of Paul E. Flanagan pursuant to Chapter 32 of the Massachusetts General Laws for service subsequent retirement allowances equal to the allowance that he would have been entitled had he retired on that date. Paul E. Flanagan will continue to be a member in service under Chapter 32, Section 1 for the purposes of eligibility for benefits under Chapter 32, Section 7, 9, or 100 during any period after his 65th birthday while servicing as fire chief. Section 2, this act shall take effect upon passage. Do I have it?
All right, there's a motion on the floor. I wouldn't ask for it to be repeated, but I would ask for a second.
Second.
Second by Councilor Boncory. Any discussion on the motion?
I just have one question.
Councilor Farino.
Chief, family history is commendatory of beyond means, and it's not my question, your loyalty to the town or anything. My concern is public safety as you, and I want to word this in a way that it's not offensive, but we're all getting up there in age, and what concerns me is, God forbid something happens to you. What situation are we in that, as to backfill you in an emergency situation, that'll keep the town safe as you've kept it for so many years?
That's correct. Well, number one, you know, I take great pride that on June 2nd is the RPM road race, and physical fitness has always been one of my big things. And I'm pretty sure we'll have 14 members that will run that road race that day, and I'll be highly disappointed if I don't beat 7 of them. So with that being said, and I know some of them will be watching, and you know, there's nothing worse than a 64-year-old fire chief beating you in a road race, but that has always been one of my things. You know, I am forced all of the time, you know, when we go out in our trucks going out in other communities will be put out of service due to lack of manpower. So, you know, when we pull up into a, you know, in front of a building, especially when we have, you know, Ron, you were at the Pauline Street fire, I had concerns, and Ron brought it up to me the next day. You kept going around checking on your crews. I have some great firefighters, and again, years ago, and I'll get to your question, Council, but tradesmen were always firefighters. You know, now, you know, we all have, they're college graduates, but they really didn't have a lot of tools in their hand until they came to the fire academy. A great bunch of guys, the morale's good, but it's a huge concern. When you order people in harm's way, you know, you had to have done it yourself. You have to be, you know, I don't stand in the street and take it lightly. You know, people say, well, fire chief makes a lot of money. And my answer is usually not as much as the police chief, but with that being said, they pay me for my responsibility. My responsibility is great, and I take it serious. But again, I have tried my hardest to stay in top physical shape, which allows me to, I'm fortunate that I did keep myself in shape to be in a position to carry this department for the next year or two, in which time we have a firefighter or a captain that this town manager or future town manager sees fit to go and take over the department. What we're seeing, especially in smaller departments, that you'll get a fire chief from New Hampshire who is timing out in the pension system up there, and they come to Massachusetts and work their last 3 years or 4 years, not looking for a pension in this state, but they're getting a pension in New Hampshire, and they come into Winthrop, or they come into another small community, make $120,000. Don't know if that's an ocean or a lake offshore drive. They know nothing about the community, but they get in the position, just like the Massachusetts fire chiefs go up to New Hampshire, they retire. So rather than bring a complete outsider, I'm just requesting that, we have stability during what appears to be a difficult financial time in Winthrop. We're dealing with firehouses. I mean, you want to bring a fire chief in where we're undermanned. My buildings, as the deputy town manager can tell you, are literally falling apart. The firefighters work to keep the living spaces livable. But as far as my health goes, that's a shot I take. But the gentleman that would hopefully step into my position, who is attending classes now to put himself in competitive position if they go outside looking for candidates for the chief of the Winthrop Fire Department, he would step in and take over for me. And if I go on vacation like I did in May, he does cover for me. But his plan is to move back to the community. And again, I stress the importance of having a fire chief that lives in the town.
Thank you, Chief. Are there other questions? Before I ask for a vote, I just want to ask the town manager the process, if this was to pass, it would go to the state. Can you just explain the process a little bit and the timing involved?
Yep, home rule petition. So it goes through the process of legislation up on the House, or up on Beacon Hill. They have to vote on it, and so it has to go through the process. So this is a first step in amongst many. So this is the town kind of saying what our intentions are, but then we also need to get the approval from fire entity as well.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I will ask for a vote. I will ask for a roll call vote.
Counsel Ringman?
Yes.
Counsel Calla?
Yes.
Counsel Christopher?
Yes.
Counsel Boncory?
Yes.
Counsel Surdo? Counsel Farino?
Yes.
Counsel Conti? Vice President Lettieri?
Yes.
President Vecchia?
Yes. Motion is passed unanimously. Pass the
Thank you,
gavel back
folks. I
to the Council President.
Thank you. Thank you,
Chair recognizes the Chair of Finance, Chairman Lettieri,
Okay, we have
for some housekeeping motions.
several motions here. First, I move that the town council vote to modify the following general fund budgets in preparation of the June 30th, 2019 closing or take any other action relative thereto. Funding details, I will not name the accounts, I'll name the description. It's a group insurance for the school. These are the funding sources, $100,000 coming from group insurance of the school, $100,000 coming from group insurance of the town, $76,244.56 coming from the group insurance retirees, $50,000 coming from payments to veterans, $21,616.44 coming from grants personnel. These are going to fund the following 9 departments: finance and administration personnel, $43,000; finance and administrative software licensing, $2,800; human resource personnel, $27,000; ISD personnel, $4,000; general office supplies, $3,000; consulting, $1,220; planning board, $4,000; Essex Agricultural School, $22,841; snow and ice account, $240,000. These debits and credits equal out to $347,861. It came out of finance with a positive recommendation, does not need a second.
Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, this takes a roll call.
General statement.
Correct?
Yep. Yeah.
Counsel Ringman?
Yes.
Counsel Calla?
Yes.
Counsel Christopher?
Yes.
Counsel Boncory?
Yes.
Counsel Surdo? Counsel Farino?
Yes.
Counsel Conti? Vice President Lettieri?
Yes.
President Vecchia?
Yes.
Motion
passes.
A motion that the town council vote to transfer $24,500 from the general stabilization fund to replenish general fund special article fiscal year 14 derelict properties for maintenance or derelict properties or take any other action relative thereto. Coming out of finance, positive recommendation.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Also coming out of stabilization, it would require a roll call vote also.
Okay, roll call.
Counselor Ringman?
Yes.
Counselor Callum?
Coming out of
Yes.
stabilization.
Counselor Christopher?
Yes.
Counselor Boncory?
Yes.
Counselor Cerdo? Counselor Farino?
Yes.
Counselor Conti? Vice President Lettieri?
Yes.
President Vecchia?
Yes.
Thank you.
I move that the town council vote to transfer $10,000 from general stabilization fund to replenish general fund special article pest control as estimated for the remainder of the fiscal year 2019, or take any other action relative thereto. Coming out with a positive recommendation. Coming out of stabilization would require a roll call vote.
Oh, roll call.
Counselor Ringman?
Yes.
Counselor Callum?
Yes.
Counselor Christopher?
Yes.
Counselor Boncory?
Yes.
Counselor Cerdo? Counselor Farino?
Yes.
Counselor Conti? Vice President Lettieri?
Yes.
President Vecchia?
Yes.
Thank you.
I move that the town council vote to close the following inactive scholarship funds, therefore transferring to the Rana Male Town Scholarship Fund the amount of $318.45, or take any other action relative thereto. This came out with unanimous positive recommendation. These are 5 very small, some are in the 21-cent range, 85-cent range, inactive scholarship funds that we're going to move into a scholarship fund that we feel is the same purpose of what these scholarship funds were set up for.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
I move that the town council vote to reduce the supplemental school department operating budget for fiscal year 2019 from $20,295,531 to $20,245,531, thereby transferring to the general stabilization fund the amount of $50,000, which reflects the unused portion of the general fund stabilization transfer voted in October to increase the school budget or take any other action relative thereto. This came out with a positive recommendation.
This needs a roll call.
Yeah, general stabilization.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call.
Counselor Ringman?
Yes.
Counselor Callum?
Yes.
Counselor Christopher?
Yes.
Counselor Boncory?
Yes.
Counselor Cerdo? Counselor Farino?
Yes.
Counselor Conti? Vice President Lettieri?
Yes.
Vice President Vecchia?
Yes.
Thank you.
I move that the town council declare as surplus the following vehicles. There is a 1996 Chevy Blazer, a 2001 Ford Crown Victoria, a 2003 Ford Crown Victoria, a 2010 Ford Crown Victoria, thereby authorizing the treasurer collector to post for sale through an approved auction site or take any other action relative thereto. Came out of finance with a positive recommendation. Does not need a second, does not need a roll call.
Council wants to know if they have sirens on them.
They do not.
Any discussion on the motion?
They have what?
Sirens.
Sirens.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Under new business, town council to vote to transfer from the general stabilization fund to the police personnel. The council anticipates going into an executive session pursuant to GL 30A 21A3 to discuss strategy with respect to pending litigation or having an open meeting may be detrimental effect on the town's litigation position. Town council will return to open session. I entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Do we have to take any votes after the
Yes.
executive session?
Pardon me?
Yes.
Will there be a vote after executive session?
Yes. There will be a vote on this after the executive session, will there not be?
It depends. I
Or
mean,
will
it's
it
going to
get
be
referred?
referred, but there will be there's other items.
There's other items that will go back into open session.
It shouldn't have to be referred, we've already done it. We're just changing the amount. I mean, it's up to council.
Right.
There will be a couple of other items. Whether we vote on what happens in this executive session or not remains to be seen. Roll call, please.
The other items.
Counselor Ringman?
Yes.
Counselor Callum?
Yes.
Counselor Christopher?
Yes.
Counselor Boncory?
Yes.
Counselor Cerdo? Counselor Farino?
Yes.
Counselor Conti? Vice President Lettieri?
Yes.
President Vecchia?
Yes,
Thank you.
into executive session. Should we?
Why don't we just
Town council's back into session. We'll go back to the original item number 1. Motion. I move that the town council transfer $530,000 from the general stabilization fund to the police department personnel line, or take any other action thereto.
There's a motion on the floor by Council President. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I will ask for a vote.
Before you vote, this isn't a vote to refer to finance.
This is a vote to refer to finance.
Right.
Yep.
No roll call needed.
No roll call
We're
needed.
referring it to vote.
We vote.
We're voting to refer this motion to finance.
Yeah, but then, it hasn't been made yet. I make a motion that we refer it to finance.
I second it.
Yes.
I just second it.
Does everybody agree?
Okay, there's a motion to refer to finance. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Motion has been referred.
Thanks, Jim. Okay. Item number 2, town council appropriate $5,523,334 for the purposes of financing the engineering, design, construction of the Winthrop Center project. Now, this is going to be referred to finance, is that correct?
Excuse me?
This will be referred to finance. Do we want to do an overview here, or wait until the main motion comes back and the council's going to vote on it?
I would wait.
So, my question with that, though, is that this could come back in the next meeting, and I know the next meeting is going to have a fair amount of items in it. So, I didn't know if you wanted to hit on some of these things now, or do it, I mean, that next meeting will be a fun one. So that's all I'm saying. This will be additional fun to it.
We each have already received this, and we each have.
You have, yes. So if you would want to enter this presentation into the record from this meeting, into the minutes, so that it's
That's the
reflected
wise thing to
there.
do.
That said, next meeting, I would very much like Anna and Dave to be able to walk you through it in a public fashion, just so it's on television as well. Large amount of work done by both of them on this, and this is very important. Dave's been working with my managers committee on this for months, so we're getting close.
I'm sure we've lost most of our audience because we left them until.
Well, they're at home. They don't have anywhere else to
Motion to
go.
refer to finance.
So I will make a
good job. Right there.
Motion has been made to refer to finance. Do I hear a second? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. Councilor Christopher.
Sure, so I think Julia did a pretty good job, the chair of the Transportation Committee, describing what we were trying to do with this motion. It's just to get recommendations for the Transportation Committee to give recommendations to the Town Council in 6 areas. It's around signage, striping and pavement to improve bus stops and accessibility for the buses, opportunities to obtain and install bus shelters around the town, ADA compliance, some issues around implementing potential service changes to the current bus routes and promoting technology which makes public transportation more accessible. So I won't belabor the point, but if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to do my best to answer what I was trying to do with it.
So this is to gather ideas. This is
is
giving
just
them the
to
ability to
ask
go out
them-
and
Yeah,
have
hold hearings.
Julia and her committee hold hearings, get
Yes.
information, and report back to the council what they're finding.
Yes, and she's gonna report back within a timely manner.
Yep.
So one thing with that, if I may. So the MBTA just sent over an MOU concerning the Better Best project today, coincidentally. I'm having, we're looking at it internally. We're actually gonna have our legal team look at it as well. My only concerns are about indemnification and insurance and things like that that are involved with it. They're they're at the table with this, and I'm excited. So phase one is a pretty easy thing. That's putting up the signs. That's where that will happen this summer. Phase 2 and 3, I really look forward to working with Julia and her committee on this type of thing, because that talks about some more delicate matters in town about should we potentially move stops, should there be a reduction in, or should we change the routes potentially, and things like that. So part of the MOU is what's on the town versus what's on the MBTA, and there are a fair amount of public meetings and things like that that we'd have to have on the town, so it'd be great to filter those through the Transportation Advisory Committee, and try to have them help advise you and myself as well. So I'd like the communication to kind of go through my office, and that's what I did with some of the text of the motion, but otherwise, I look forward to working on this project.
I'll second Pete's motion.
Okay.
Do you want me to read it? Was that what-
I don't think we need it, no. Any further discussion? It's been seconded. Any further discussions on Pete's motion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. Public comment? Hearing none. Public relations, we have an opening for the member of the library trustees. We also have an opening on the planning board. On May 25th, the blessing and dedication of the Irish Memorial on Deer Island at 10 o'clock this coming Saturday. And of course, on Monday is the Memorial Day services at the cemetery at 10 o'clock. There's also a parade at 2 o'clock. The lineup for the parade is 1 o'clock. I sent out a memo to everybody that the start time is 2, but I guess the setup time is 1, right on Pauline Street, on Walden and Pauline. On June 11th is the second annual Harbor Day at the public landing. 6 to 8, all kinds of good stuff going to happen then. And we have the ribbon cutting for the new ramp at 5 o'clock. I guess the governor's coming and various dignitaries, something like that. Contributions to the Rhoda Mail Scholarship is still being accepted for the class of 2019. Any councils have any public relations?
Graduation.
Graduation is
Friday night, May 31st.
That's right.
Friday.
Went to high school. Be a great class.
And the prom is Tuesday.
Senior week activities begin.
Yes.
Graduation is 31st or the 24th?
31st.
Any further discussion, ladies and gentlemen of the council? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
There's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen.
You wanna go?